What's happening, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. And tonight, we are going to be reviewing the DWZ staff's rankings of the tight end position. That is after the season, but before free agency. Why before free agency? Well, because a guy like Hunter Henry, who's a unrestricted free agent, could go somewhere else, and that could change his value. So we'll be updating these as we go along. But I'll tell you who I'm not ever going to update. That's my co-host, because my co-host is none other than the man of the hour and the man with the power. He is Jerry Sinclair. Jerry, what is up?
As the David Njoku of tight end podcasters, I am glad to be here. Always fun. And we are going to talk about a position that is a bit of a barren wasteland, but it's something we have to talk about because, they score points. But Randy, before we get into any business or anything,
Sure.
I am a Detroit Lions fan.
My first question. My first question. What do you got, man?
I don't know if you guys happened to hear about a little Matthew Stafford trade. We all sort of thought it was happening. As a very wise man once told me a very Southern phrase, to piss on the fire and call in the dogs. It was time to piss on the Matthew Stafford fire and call in the dogs. It was time. It sucks. I will be rooting for him to win for the Rams, even though it will potentially hurt the Detroit Lions. But I can't hate the man, and I can't blame the man. And it's good that the organization didn't do him dirty like they did Barry and Calvin. They let him go have his chance at a ring. So that's good. We got Jared Goff. So,
hey,
okay.
I know. You and I happen to be Jared Goff apologists, and listen,
We are.
I admit it. I think it's a win for your Lions. I know it's not popular. I know it's funny to make fun of the guy and his biting kneecaps. Here's the thing, gang. Dan Campbell has, rubbed up against a lot of really good coaching in his time. I also like the fact that, like Joe Judge of the New York Giants, that he's never been an OC or a DC. I like the fact that he's never called plays. One of the things that got Patricia in trouble and bogged him down is that he was a defensive coordinator, and his chubby little sausage fingers were all over the defense, and he wasn't running the team. So I think that Dan Campbell has been a good hire. The initial press conference notwithstanding, and I'm excited to see what he brings. I think Anthony Lynn, formerly of the LA Chargers, now the offensive coordinator. We went into a little research because it was a debate in our Patreon group chat. And Anthony Lynn, during his time as the head coach in LA/San Diego, he was no worse than 11th in total yards. They averaged over 6,000 yards a season, and they were no worse than 19th in scoring. That's not bad. Now, I get it. He's not bringing Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen or Phillip Rivers or Mike Williams, but I really think the Lions have potential. And here was the take I had last night, and I am championing this as my own take because I have not heard anyone else. It is rumored that the Carolina Panthers offered the 108 and maybe another pick. And my thing is why would the Lions want to take a pick, next year or the year after? And my thought is maybe they're just not that impressed with this quarterback class unless your name's Trevor Lawrence. Maybe they don't want to have to decide between Justin Fields and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, and they don't want to trade up to get him. Maybe, just maybe with that 7, they want to pick up a sweet wide receiver. And they look at Jared Goff now that the Rams were so kind to pick up a good chunk of his signing bonus money, and they can bridge him for a year or two. And then next year, if they're in a position to take a quarterback, that next year they might be willing to put some of those firsts to work and trade up for a veteran or trade up for a rookie that they like if Jared Goff doesn't work out. I think for Goff, it's a win. Out of LA, not only was he competing with, the teams in the NFC West, but now in the same building, you got Justin Herbert. You're in LA, you've got the world champion Dodgers, the world champion Lakers. There's a lot of pressure on that organization to win. He does not seem to be the most alpha of dudes. And Detroit, even though it's a tough city, #8 Mile, baby. I feel like the media will be a little bit more generous with him, and I'm excited to see what he can do with Swift and Hawk and I think Galladay could come back. I don't think any wide receivers are going to get franchise tagged this year. I was talking with our buddy Nate in the GOAT chat, and if you tag a wide receiver this year with a franchise tag, you are guaranteeing that dude $20 million.
No, thank you.
It's a lot of dough to bring in a wide receiver. But if you have Hawk and you have Swift and you have that 107, man, you might be able to get a Jamar Chase. You might be able to get a Devonta Smith, and then you're kind of cooking. The offensive line's not bad, so I don't think for Goff or Stafford it really changes their dynasty value that much.
No.
They were both like, what would you say they were both 13 to 24 in a startup currently?
Oh yeah. And listen, I understand why the Rams did it. I think they paid way too damn much for a 30, I think he's 33 this week. Yeah, 33-year-old quarterback who has had some injury issues recently. That's ignoring the fact that he separated his collarbone twice when he, was a rookie in his second year. He's never won a playoff game. He's disappeared for 3/4 of, 75% of the games. He can turn it on. The dude is awesome. He does awesome things. It's great. Let me tell you, I was flabbergasted when I got the notification that said we got 2 firsts, a third, and Jared Goff. It was unbelievable. And to your point, I get why people want to talk about the 8th pick in Carolina and everything. To your point, you're not getting Trevor Lawrence. At no point are you ever going to be able to trade up to get Trevor Lawrence. There's a reason Urban Meyer took that job. There's a reason Darrell Bevel is there. It's because they wanted to have that spot and they wanted to have Trevor Lawrence. So they are going to take him. So you're going to spend the 7th overall pick and the 8th overall pick to move up to get the second best quarterback in the class. I don't like it. And to your point, Randy, if you get multiple picks, it gives you multiple years to try and maneuver the draft board in whatever way you deem necessary. And with all the extra capital that you have, let's say next year you like, Keaton Slovis or Sam Howell or whoever Spencer Rattler, whoever the hell you like. You now have 2 picks that year and 2 picks the next year. You can move to wherever the hell you want. You can pick the guy that you want. And maybe Jared Goff does good. We're all under this assumption that he's not going to, and I'm sort of in that camp as well. But it creates so much more flexibility for an organization that, hell, even if they traded down and got multiple picks, I wouldn't be mad because it is a bad roster. Just up, down, offense, defense, special teams, you name it. There's holes everywhere because Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were 2 of the worst at their jobs that the NFL has ever seen. Listen, Dan Campbell is a question mark, and I don't know if it's going to turn out well. But like you said with the Detroit media and Jared Goff, here's the thing about Lions fans. We don't expect anything from the organization. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be upset that he wins 6 games? No, not year 1, not year 2. We expect it to be awful. We just paid Matthew Stafford a shitload of money, and he's Stafford. He's an upgrade from Jared Goff, and we got the 7th overall pick. So what? We think we're going to lose Kenny Galladay, lose Marvin Jones. We're going to downgrade to Jared Goff, and we're going to get better? No, people, we are not. The Detroit Lions are going to be piss poor next year also. They're going to be picking in the top 5, and I'm cool with that. Thank you. That's my rant. And listen, this is the beginning of fun things this offseason. If we're seeing stuff like this already, we haven't hit the draft. We haven't even gotten close to the draft, really, and we've already got quarterbacks on the move.
Don't forget free agencies in 6 weeks.
And that's what I'm saying. This is going to possibly be the most fun offseason we have had. Also, Deshaun Watson is not going anywhere because if Matthew Stafford costs that much.
Yeah, you got to leave a little bit but his owner, Cal McNair, is an honorary Texan. And it sounds like, they both got a posture because no one can lose this battle of public negotiation. So they both have to posture a little bit. I will just be surprised. I'll be surprised, but I'm not going to waste a lot of breath on a situation that hasn't unfurled yet. But when it does, rest assured we will cover it. By the way, I am not qualified to give you an honest opinion on what this does for the Rams' weapons. Anyone who tells you which wide receiver in LA wins with Matthew Stafford, I want to see their rostership of Cooper Kupp, Bobby Trees, and the rest of the wide receivers there. If someone tells you that this benefits Robert Woods, how many
They have a lot of Robert Woods shares.
How many Robert Woods shares you have? If the answer is more than one, you're biased. Now, I love Cooper Kupp as if his last name was Young. So it's not really fair for me. I hope. How about this? I think worst case scenario, everybody gets a 10% lift, and we really won't know. We really, really, really won't know what it is until we start seeing training camp videos. We start seeing OTAs. We start seeing mini camps, and we see how dudes vibe. Sometimes dudes just vibe. Like we would have thought Tom Brady would have vibed with Chris Godwin running the slot, but really it looked like during the season Tom Brady was vibing with Mike Evans. We speculated as Dynasty podcasters that it was going to be Godwin and that was going to be great for Gronk, but he really, when he wants to take the big shot, man, it's really Mike Evans. So we'll have to keep an eye on the situation, and we'll be prepared to cover that. Now, I do got to do a little promoting before we got to talk tight ends. First of all, I want to thank you guys for the reviews. It's because of you I bought a Wi-Fi extender and I bought a new mic cord because it was apparent from the reviews that I had a mic issue. So hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. I will continue to monitor that situation to make sure the crackling of my mic does not continue. But this is the importance of the reviews. People want us to get right to the Dynasty advice. We just did that. So the reviews, guys, we're at 198 total. So wherever you're listening, if you're not driving an automobile, operating machinery, you're driving a combine, how about you hit pause and just slide over and give us a review? For some reason, it works better on Apple. It's just the algorithm. If you're a stats nerd, you know what an algorithm is. So it just works better on iTunes, but we'll take them wherever. We can see them all. And so again, thank you guys for the constant support. What's coming up is after the Super Bowl, Mock Draft Monday will be moving to Sunday. So the live show on YouTube will be Sunday night and the pod will be Monday morning. Our buddies Jake and Kyle from the FF SmackDown will be doing a once a week redraft show on the YouTube Monday night into Tuesday morning. So look for that. And then tomorrow night, if you're into gambling in the Super Bowl, and everybody gambles on the Super Bowl. Jerry, you're legal in Michigan now.
I know. Hey, they just started online poker too, so my productivity is about to tank.
Which sucks here in the state of Indiana because we have the online sports betting, but not the online poker. But tomorrow night, she was our first guest to start the series, and she's going to be our final guest of the year. Rosalie Michaels of DraftKings is going to join Dr. Kyle and I as we cover props and player bets and some sides and totals for the Super Bowl. So stick around with us, man. We got a lot of big stuff going on. And Jerry, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to talk tight ends.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, man. So here we go. We're going to give you our consensus staff rankings, and then Jerry will talk about where he has these guys. I will talk about where I have these guys. And the rankings are the composite of myself and Jerry, our graphics guru, Matty Big Chest, Kyle August of the FF SmackDown, Dr. Kyle Bowser, my co-host on the Big Bet, Jake Fripp, who is Kyle's co-host on the FF SmackDown, Tyler O, and Lou Dog of our new DFS show, The Daily Destroyer, which will be hitting you this weekend, getting you ready for the Super Bowl. So the 8 of us, this is our composite rankings of the tight end position. So coming in at number 12, he did not make everyone's top 12, but he is barely inside the top 12. It is Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. We saw flashes of brilliance down in Miami last year. I got to say, I think I was more impressed with Tua than I was with Fitzmagic. And I think just from what I watched, I don't have the data to back this up currently. It felt like Tua was much more willing to push the ball into the middle of the field as opposed to the sidelines. And if that continues to be the case with Tua and his development, that could be big things for Mike Gesicki. So, Jerry, for me, Mike Gesicki did not make my top 12, but he was close. He was number 13 for me. He was number 10 for you. Tell me a story about a man named Gesicki.
It's weird that I have him in my top 10 and you don't, because I feel like I was like one of the king Mike Gesicki haters coming into the season. And for the first couple of weeks, it seemed like that was going to be reality for the dude. But he did put it together a little bit, and he's still a young guy, and he's talented, and I think Tua's going to grow. I'm not ready to cast Tua off yet. It's super popular to do that. I like zigging when everyone's zagging, and the more people hate people, the more I like them. That's why I'm acquiring Clyde Edwards-Helaire everywhere. That's why I'm going to try and shoot for Tua. I like Mike Gesicki, and we saw the breakout for Devontae Parker last year. We were hoping to see Preston Williams sort of grow. He didn't really. Devontae Parker didn't really repeat. It still seems like Mike Gesicki is going to be the one guy that's sort of a steady Eddie in that offense, no matter who's there. And, we're talking about an extremely volatile position in the tight end. So I like Mike Gesicki. It's weird. I've done like a 180 on the man. And if someone is, questioning that, I will be sending offers because there's really like, we're going to talk tight ends and, we're going to make them sound a little bit better than a lot of them probably deserve to sound. Because there's probably like 6 guys that I care about. I don't know how many you have. You have your circle of awesome when we talked about quarterbacks on that episode. There's sort of a smaller circle of awesome that I have in tight ends. So yeah, he's one of the serviceable guys. That's what I'll say about Mike Gesicki.
I think the buy window is wide open, especially in tight end premium. Now, it's a move I would be looking to make around draft season. I don't think there's going to be a lot of buzz around Gesicki, but I'm sitting here looking at his game-by-game log with Tua, and he had arguably his best games of the year, at least from a fantasy points production standpoint, with Tua. He had 6 touchdowns on the season. 4 of those came with Tua as the quarterback, and he set career highs in games started, receptions, yards per reception, and touchdowns. Oh, and first downs. So he was clearly an integral part of the offense. Now, how much of that was the banged up, constantly hurt wide receiver core with Devontae Parker limited all year with a bad hammy and Preston Williams being out a majority of the year? I don't know. There will be new targets in Miami. I just feel comfortable saying that. It's a good wide receiver free agency class. They got a little bit of dough to spend, and they got a lot of draft picks. So the odds of Mike Gesicki not getting target competition is pretty bad. He's going to get some competition. I think I'm going to go back. I think once we do the post-free agency pre-draft rankings, which will only be available on Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone, I think I will have to move Mr. Gesicki up. So let's move to number 11. Overall consensus for the group, ranked by 6 of 8 of us. I had him at number 10. You had him at number 9. It is Mike Evans. I feel like I'm giving him a little bit too much love. I feel like I should maybe bump him up a hair, but currently number 10.
You just said Mike Evans. Who are we talking about?
Sorry, Evan Ingram.
There we go.
I was turning good catch. I was catching him into turning him into a Wheel of Fortune before or after puzzle. It's Mike Evans Ingram. That's his full legal name. It's like Matt Stafford's first name's not even Matt. It's John. For the record, by the way. How can you trust a guy who's lied about his first name for years? If I was going to do that,
he's best friends with the baseball guy. That's it. I'm glad I don't got to hear about that every week.
You know that if people were going to lie about their first name, you guys would know me as Matt Young, as opposed to Randy Young. But Randy was my dad's name, and I would never do that to my father. So, but anyway, Evan Ingram, New York Giants, going to be playing on the 5th-year option. I have him at 10. You have him at 9. What are your thoughts on Evan Ingram? Do you think Mr. Butterfingers is ever going to get his act together?
No, I don't. And I have him at 9. I hate Evan Ingram. And I say that, as a little caveat, because I do have him at 9 because I think he's in a position that he's going to get some targets. And I think he has sort of a safe floor as far as tight ends in this range are concerned. I mean, I just made a trade for him in a league that we play. And it's because I was worried that I was not going to get Kyle Pitts, who I would much prefer to have, even though I'm not a scout. Like I don't know a ton about Kyle Pitts. That just shows how much I feel about Evan Ingram. I just didn't want to miss out because I needed a tight end in that league. Yeah, I don't love him. I don't. There's nothing I can tell you that it would tell you anything different. I just think this is such a weak position that with the role that he is getting and the pass catchers that are in that offense, I just think he's inevitably going to get work. And all it takes is, one game of 3 touchdowns or one game of 140 yards, and immediately a tight end's value spikes because not many tight ends can do that at the position. And Evan Ingram is going to get targeted. He's going to get featured a little bit. They'll probably get some competition as pass catchers. I couldn't imagine they wouldn't. I mean, you didn't really see Darius Slayton grow at all. I can't imagine Golden Tate's going to be playing much longer. If he is, it's not going to be relevant. So I have him at 9, but I don't like him. If that isn't a euphemism for exactly what the tight end position is in 2021, I don't know what else I could say.
Well, I'll give you some of the reasons why I'm a little bit more optimistic on Ingram. Is one, for the first time in his career, he played all 16 games in 2020. His previous high was 15 his rookie year, and what do you know? He had 63 catches, one off of his rookie year career high, which was 64. He had 650 yards, second best of his career. What really hurt him was he only had 1 touchdown. So I'm sitting here looking at his stats page as we speak. This is a guy who has averaged 7 targets a game throughout his career. We just need some consistency. We need some consistency in this offense. I have seen the Giants mocked, taking a wide receiver in several mock drafts. I've also seen them as potential players in the wide receiver free agency class. I've heard Allen Robinson to New York could be a thing. And I think all of this bodes well for Evan Ingram because, it's great that your tight end's getting 115 targets a game. I'm sorry, a game, that'd be great. 115 targets in a season. But it's even better if he's not the focal point of the defense to stop. On top of which, if we could just cure the butterfingers just a little, not a lot, just a little bit less butterfingers. I think the butterfingers thing is a little, he's got a 57% catch rate, and his career catch rate is still 60%. Not great. Should be a little bit higher for a tight end. But believe it or not, going into year 5, I still think there's room for growth. Growth for this offense with Daniel Jones, growth for you get Barkley back, you add another wide receiver, Slayton becomes more of a Robin than a Batman. Golden Tate becomes a situational piece. Maybe they would use him the way that the Bills use Cole Beasley because he's certainly tough enough and a damn good slot receiver to do it. So I see big things in this offense, and that's why I had him number 9. Now, this next guy is number 10 for the consensus. He was number 9 for me and number 6 for you. You are by far the highest on this man. Now, maybe I will join you in the celebration of Hunter Henry if he winds up on a really good team in free agency. I don't see the Chargers franchise tagging him again. I think they'll either gamble with Donald Parham or Parham, however you pronounce his last name, and or maybe draft a rookie. I know me and Garrett Price, when he was on talking tight ends with me, we fantasy drafted him to the Chargers at 13 overall. Nothing would make me happier as both a Justin Herbert and Kyle Pitts fan. But Jerry, what do you think? What about you? I'm going to let you take the reins here on Mr. Hunter Henry as you have him at 6. Are you just you're just ready? Your body is ready for the Hunter Henry explosion? That sounds horrible.
Yeah, yes, it does. It's not. I think this is. So I have him at 6, and I think that is the very tippy top of the people that I do not have in my circle of awesome. He could be 6. He could be 17. I think I just happened to put him at 6 because I think he's a nice young talent. He's shown what he can do, and that's with an aging Phillip Rivers, a young Justin Herbert. He's always sort of been that steady Eddie guy that can still get you 4 or 5 catches. He's not going to explode by all means. He is one of the most boring tight ends to own, but he also doesn't kill you. He's not the guy that's going to get 1 catch for 13 yards and that's all you get. So he's going to get you 3-4 catches, 40 yards. Every once in a while, he'll get you a touchdown, and that's good. Also, I sort of like guys that are free agents because immediately when they find a new team, value spikes. We saw it with Austin Hooper. And Austin Hooper started in your lineups. He did not do everything that you wanted him to do. Same thing with Hayden Hurst. He ends up in Atlanta. He got a spike because he was going to take that Austin Hooper job and he was going to run with it. And then you started him in your lineups, or you took him earlier than you should have. Tight end 6, tight end 7. Whoops, that didn't work out. So that's sort of my thinking with Hunter Henry also. Also, Hunter Henry's a name that we've been hearing about, so it doesn't really matter if he's not productive because his trade value still exists. Just because people have heard about him a ton, he's a relatively young guy, and now he is going to be in a new situation, which will almost certainly give him a spike, assuming something stupid doesn't happen, like he lands in San Francisco or something.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen. I would not. There's local rumblings that a lot of Colts media and fans would love to see him here in Indianapolis. And when we've been dealing with the craptastic run of Mo Alley Cox, Trey Burton, Baby,
and they always get hyped too. Your guys always get hyped up.
Eric Ebron, it's one of those things. It's a great position, but because Frank Reich does have a track record of using the tight end position as a play caller. The problem is I just don't think he's had the tight end. So I would not be surprised if the Colts were in the mix. My ranking might go up if he gets the Colts. I don't think that they can afford him in Philadelphia. I could see him going back to work with Nick Sirianni, but they've already got another guy. And what a nice little transition. How about that? Master of the segue. Dallas Goedert coming in as the consensus number. Let's see, that is number 9 for Mr. Dallas Goedert. Jerry, what do you got on Dallas Goedert? You have him at 11, and I have him at number 8.
Why don't you talk about him a little bit first? Because I'm not the biggest guy on him, but I do like Carson Wentz bouncing back a little bit because he's going to need it if he wants to continue playing in this league. And I think that the pass catchers that are in Philadelphia, a little suspect. We could talk about Jalen Reagor all we want, and we could talk about the other guys that are there. They have struggled. Point blank. No, thank you. And Carson Wentz has targeted the tight ends, but you've sort of always been a fan, and it shows a little bit in the ranking. So just take it away, my friend.
Well, I will just say this about Dallas Goedert. The Eagles are already way over the salary cap. And this is part of the reason why they cannot afford to trade or cut Carson Wentz. They can't afford it. That's why they're putting all of their eggs in the basket of Nick Sirianni and the team to help get him turned around because they need him. His big extension just is now starting in 2021. So they're obviously going to keep him, but they did not get an extension worked out with Zach Ertz. So that is not a huge thing for Zach Ertz, but because he didn't make our top 12.
No.
But, I mean, he made, let's see, Zach Ertz made one top 12. I will not out that ranker because it was not you or I.
I did have him at 12, and I switched Irv Smith out for him at the end.
Oh, good man. But I just see Zach Ertz being gone, man. They can't afford him. They have got to chop veterans. They have got to chop salary cap. And Zach Ertz and D-Jax and Alshon Jeffrey, those are all the guys that are going to feel this cost-cutting measures in Philadelphia. And finally, all of the Dallas Goedert fanboys have got their shot at a shot at greatness. So ready to move on. But before we do, I'm going to do a little bit of a commercial, real quick. We'll make sure to talk about our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Man, we continue to offer up, new members every single week, man. Like Jerry texted me last week. He's like, how many people can we fit in this group chat? And I'm like, I don't know. Hopefully all of them. Hopefully we don't ever get to a spot to where we have too many. And I think it's a combination of the value. I had some guests on recently, the past couple of weeks. We were talking about Patreon. They were like, why do you charge so little for the Patreon? I'm like, it's not about the money. The money just tells us that you're serious about Dynasty Fantasy Football. And we think you get a lot because what we offer a tremendous group chat. We're going to offer up patron leagues where you'll get to be in a league with me or Jerry, maybe both. You also might get another member of the DWZ. So we're going to be rolling Patreon leagues. We've already got seven leagues. I'm in half, you're in half. Devi leagues. All the winners got paid out within a week. That's a big thing. And here's the biggest thing. Jerry, I know you were this guy because I was that guy. You were probably the most active owner in your Dynasty League when you first started playing. You loved it. You couldn't talk about it enough. You loved it so much you joined a podcast. But before you did you feel like you were the alien in the group? Like, guys, I just want to talk about fantasy football every single day.
Yeah, just pestering people all the time. Yes,
You know,
sir.
that is what we offer. That is, it's a lot of people. Not everybody participates every day. Some people do participate every day, and that's fantastic. But if you really want to be in a group, you want to be in a community, and that's the right word, a community of people who are passionate about Dynasty fantasy football just like you are, this is the spot for you. On top of that, you also get the rookie chat, which is being ran by Maddie Big Chest, our graphics guy, and one of the co-hosts over at the Dynasty Rewind, heading up their Devi department. We've got Dr. Kyle, myself, and some of the fellow degenerates talking gambling in the gambling podcast. And everything is all, we do an extra podcast a week. We do one-on-one roster help. What you get for the money will take it a long way. We're not valuing or devaluing our product. It's just to make sure that you want to be on board. So check us out, Dynasty WarZone. That's the Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. And you can text message or DM Jerry or me, because a DM is basically a text message. And we'll get you going on the Patreon. So Jerry, speaking of getting going, let's get going into the next group of guys. Now this one right here, I found a little bit interesting. I had him at 11, as high as 5 for one ranker, Logan Thomas. So I thought this was an interesting one. You did not have him ranked. I am a big fan. I think big things. I think a quarterback upgrade will do him I think he's the number 2 target behind my main man, Terry McLaurin. I think this is an offense that's looking for weapons. And so I have him at 11. I will not, again, if you want to see the rankings, that you have to join the Patreon. It's another thing that's included in the Patreon. But Jerry, where are you at on Logan Thomas? Was it like the age thing? Was it like him being 29? Was that kind of your takeaway?
That was definitely one of the things. And he just smells like the new hotness. Like he popped a few times, got a super late breakout age. Listen, I mean, we saw it with Darren Waller, and listen, Darren Waller made me eat crow this year. He made me look like a moron because I thought that was not going to repeat, and wrong. So listen, it's possible. I'm not about it. Super late breakout age. I have no idea what in the hell is going to happen with that quarterback situation, with that offense. I don't know. I would assume they bring in another wide receiver at some point, you would think. I think Antonio Gibson's going to grow as a receiver. A foregone conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I was just going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. Another wide receiver we love Terry. And Terry is clear, and I always use the Batman and Robin comparison. He's clearly Batman.
Yes.
That man's a bad man. But yeah, they clearly need some more weapons beyond what they have currently. And most importantly, they need a quarterback. So I don't disagree, but what would it take? Is there a quarterback? Is there a quarterback that could land in Washington that would make you maybe consider him replacing an Irv Smith or someone like that in your top 12?
If it was going to be anybody, it would be Irv Smith. Honestly, let me get somebody with a pulse, Randy. Honestly, it's just I don't know what the hell to expect, and they're not in a great spot where they're going to be able to draft one. So it's just it's tough. It's tough. Listen, if they want to come and get Jared Goff from the Detroit Lions, by all means, please do that. I would love just a full rebuild from the Honolulu Blue. I mean, he's not that old. And here's the thing. We had Dan Williamson on probably a couple months ago at this point. And, he brought up that if you are a tight end and you hit, it is much more likely that you continue through age. Essentially, tight ends age like wine and not like milk. If you have shown that you can be a good tight end, you can continue being a good tight end into your 30s. It's not like a running back. So he has shown it. And listen, if he starts to pop off at the beginning of the season, I'm going to look stupid. And I want you to bring this back up when it happens. Secondly, that value is going to shoot up into the 4, 5, 6 range, because it's a crazy spot where it's like we're all buying hype right in that range. So it's whoever the new hotness is at the time is always the one that's there. A couple years ago, it was Evan Ingram. It was OJ Howard after he got drafted. It's always that spot. And if he hits, then he's going to jump up. You're going to get immediate value. So I get it, but you talk about him. You're the one that's got him ranked. I'm the hater over here.
Well, you're not really a hater. I think you're being very practical. And I had him at 11. I just think the 110 targets and the 72 receptions is repeatable, but I can't guarantee that. So, he's a fringe tight end one for me, but the tight end position is a barren wasteland. So he's worth a flyer. I don't, again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. And since they're not here to defend that opinion, I'm not going to mention who it was. They could have been blinded by the triple-digit target number. They could have liked the 6 touchdowns. I don't know, but too many questions for me to have him any higher than 11, and I'm not going to waste too much more time on Logan Thomas, but certainly an interesting addition. This next guy feels like Mike Gesicki in a different, also in orange, by the way, Noah Fant. If you go to playerprofiler.com and pull up Noah Fant's athletic measurables and then pull up Mike Gesicki's, they're virtually identical. They're both like in the 99th percentile of the athlete score over there at Player Profiler. So I like him a little bit better just because I know it's going to sound odd, I like Drew Lock just a little bit better. And I like his offensive coordinator a little bit better. Pat Shurmur is a tenured offensive coordinator, had some great tight end seasons too under his belt as an offensive coordinator with Kyle Rudolph, with your boy Evan Ingram of all people. So I do believe in this offense, even if Drew Lock is not there. In fairness to Drew Lock and all of the Broncos and their talent, they have yet to have a normal offseason and the entire band together. Drew Lock strikes me as the kind of a little immature, but he strikes me as the kind of fellow that really could have benefited from a normal offseason, a normal OTAs, a normal training camp, time with his teammates. Zoom meetings probably don't cut it for a cowboy like Drew Lock. So I think a somewhat more normal offseason will stabilize a lot of the assets from a dynasty standpoint on the Denver Broncos. And I've got a size, speed, specimen freak. Now, he may not get the volume. He may not get the volume of some of the guys that we're getting ready to talk about. But this dude has got the tools to take one to the house on any given week. He went very high. He went 3rd overall last night when I was spending time with, speaking of Roto Underworld, Cody Carpentier of Roto Underworld talked about the young tight ends with me last night, as well as Michael Bauer from the Dynasty Rewind. And Michael actually liked Fant just a little bit better than your boy Hawkinson. Now that felt like blasphemy to me, but you don't treat guests like that. So I'm a Fant guy. He was number 7 for me. I'm right at consensus. You're at 8. So I think we're kind of in the same light. What are your takes on Fant?
Yeah, I think I might actually be a little too low on him. I think I'm going to have to move him up a little bit. I think the problem is I'm just not a super Drew Lock guy. And I think if he had a better quarterback, I think his talent is there to be in that next sort of tier. I think I'm going to switch him and Hunter Henry. I think his talent, his production right now is about the same that Hunter Henry has done. He's younger. He's got a better athletic profile. I think he's got a better future. I think I'm going to move him up. I think if I were to redo it right this second, I think I would put him at 6.
Well, please don't. I just posted these to the Patreon, or I'm getting ready to. But you can, what you may do to save yourself an edit is wait and see where Hunter Henry goes in free agency.
There we go.
That way you don't have to make an edit after the show.
Yeah, if there's one thing I don't like doing, I don't like working. Yeah, I don't like working. I pass on that.
I will testify.
I don't know. Noah Fant puts you in a weird situation because he's got a great talent and, he was an unbelievable prospect coming out, but it takes time for tight ends. So I feel like we all say that whenever you draft a tight end, it takes time for a tight end to hit. But then when you're actually in the process of it taking time, it's like when a running back runs a fast 40 and they're going to run a fast 40 and you double their value because they did it. I think what I'm doing with Noah Fant is double hurting the tight end that is taking a little bit longer to be an elite tight end. And I don't think that's fair. And that's why I think I would move up on him. Noah Fant's a good guy. And he's one of the guys that I would be happy to have. I don't know if he's in the circle of awesome where you're thrilled that you have him, but Why, Tyler? Why did I put you in a weird position? But yeah, I like the dude.
What Jerry? If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the comment from good friend of the show and just all around good dude Tyler Gunther. He said Jerry put him in a weird position. I wonder if that's like a full Nelson, maybe a half Nelson.
But listen, I talk about a bunch of weird stuff on the show, so in a lot of situations, I would understand me putting him in a weird situation.
You are the most interesting guy I know. You have your tastes in things across the world is quite broad. Now, hey, you know what Kyle asked? So let's just go ahead and get into it. I'm sorry, yeah. Tyler asked, Kyle Pitts or Noah Fant? Well, for me and you, we have Kyle Pitts as a consensus across the group as number 6, our number 6 tight end across the board without even an NFL snap. I have him at number 5. You have him at number 7. So we are clearly fans of this guy. I mean, I've already had great conversations with, friends of the show, Ray GQ and Garrett Price. They've told me all I need to know. The only thing that could cause him to go down my rankings, maybe a spot or two, if he was to land in a real bad, awkward, like an Arizona. I'm sorry, I don't trust that, that the ultra handsome yet ultra horrible coach, Cliff Kingsbury, would know how to use him. I don't trust Kyler Murray throwing a lot over the middle. I just feel like that would be a bad spot. Maybe I would lower him down a peg or two. But I will tell you, if he lands in that dream spot of the LA Chargers, I would probably bump him up a little bit. He may even be creeping up on the top 4. So for me, I have him at 5. I do have him ahead of Mark Andrews, where we're going to go next. But what is your love and fascination with the big man out of Gainesville?
Listen, I'm not a scout. We've said it once. I'll say it 100 times on the show. I'm not. But what I do love is college football, because when you're a Lions fan, you can't love the Detroit Lions because they suck the happiness from you. So you have to root for a college team. And so I watch SEC football because, ready for this, my Spartans don't win in college football either. And he is just a fun dude to watch. He does it against the best talent, and he just looks like a man amongst boys, not to use that cliche, but it is. And those are NFL players, future NFL players. Kyle Pitts just looks like a dude. And Gunther says he's right behind Hawk. I think that's fair. I mean, Hawk has shown what he can do in the league, so I understand having him above him, and I do too. And Kyle Pitts is just, he's a dude. And it is situation dependent, and I do think that it'll take a little bit of growing, and his value may take a hit initially. But if you stick in a vacuum with the talent, I think you are going to be okay with Kyle Pitts.
Follow-up question. What's the earliest you would take him in a super flex tight end premium draft? What pick do you feel like, hey, I'm okay taking him here?
I used, or in the league that I mentioned earlier where I traded for Evan Ingram, I had the 107. That was part of the package that I traded, and I traded it away to get a tight end because I didn't think Kyle Pitts would fall to me there, if that says anything. I think now it's called the Ultimate Premium League, so I don't want to shock anybody when I say that the premiums in the league are pretty high.
Very much so.
And it's a bunch of savvy players, so it's likely that he probably goes, and I would have missed out, and I would have been sitting there with a roster with Josh Oliver, and let me tell you how much Josh Oliver is going to help me win games. He's not. I think right in that range, 106, 107.
Well, I have the 106 in that league, and spoiler alert, Kyle Pitts is definitely on my radar. Tyler Higbee and Austin Hooper, and they are not going to cut it on this roster. And our man Chiefs fan 1002 said Carolina could use Pitts, and I agree 100%. And then Tyler has Pitts in his 5 or 6 range. So there you go. That's why you got to follow along on YouTube. You never know who's going to jump in the group chat. Last night it was Ray Garvin. Tonight it's Tyler Gunther. You never know who's going to be hanging out with you in the Dynasty WarZone group chat. So, all right, we already kind of mentioned him. So he's our number 5 collectively. He's number 6 for me. His stock fell a little bit. I still have concerns about the offense in Baltimore. It's Mark Andrews. 5 as a group. Jerry, you have him at 4. I am the lowest at 6. The highest is 4. So we have middled him nicely at number 5 overall. I'm going to let you take him first because I am going to sit here and ponder why I am not a bigger fan of a man in purple.
I think it's unfair that I probably have him a spot too high. I should probably have Darren Waller there, but I'm an ageist. I can't help it. He's young. He's tied to Lamar Jackson, who's not the best, passing quarterback. Anybody who's has eyeballs, they've seen that. But I mean, the dude can get into the red zone, and all the defenses look for him to run it, and then Mark Andrews is just standing there wide open. So, young, productive tight end, pretty good offense that doesn't focus on him, so he can be sneaky with his touchdowns. I don't love him. Like for where I know I have him at 4, and I'm saying I don't love him, but it's iffy. It's scary. He's a scary guy to have. Like I could easily see him being the guy that just falls off the face of the earth. And if they eventually get a wide receiver that maybe deserves a nickname like Hollywood, then I think that would hurt him too. So I have him at 4. I don't hate him. He's in the circle of awesome because he is productive and he helps people win, and he's pretty young, but don't love it. You talk about him though. You're the one, you had him a little bit lower. Tell me why.
I mean, just it's the passing volume of that team, and that's a good team. And when they're ahead, they're gonna run the ball. And his volume was about the same. He played 14 games last year versus 15 the year before. His catch per game is about the same. He had 58 catches in 14 games last year versus 64 catches in 15 games the year before. His yards went down. He averaged 1.2 less yards per reception. TDs weren't horrible. He went from 10 to 7. His catch rate was the exact same, 65.3 to 65.9. So yards per target, 8.7 to 8. It's just really the volume and the way that this team plays the game. I am concerned that I'm concerned that this offense never takes another step forward, to be quite honest.
I think that's fair too.
I don't know how the offense is going to progress, and I don't know what they're going to do in free agency. I don't know what they're going to do in the draft. Hollywood's not going anywhere. Obviously, Andrews is not going anywhere. They don't really pass to the running backs, but what if they bring in another wide receiver? I mean, anyone they bring in, especially if they bring in an outside wide receiver, do they move Hollywood inside? And kind of like I said about Tua, Lamar tends to push the ball to the middle of the field, which is a benefit for Andrews. But if you bring in a slot wide receiver, does that eat away? We saw a little, not Miles Boykin, the other guy, Devin Duvernay, and we saw a little Willie Snead. If they bring in someone who's much more talented than Devin Duvernay and Willie Snead, you could have
just
a real
crumb bums and shoe clerks, man.
Yes, absolutely. They'll be washing your car this offseason. Not really, but But my point is, if they draft somebody, this is another loaded wide receiver class. So if they bring someone in that works in the middle of the field, or if they spend a little money in free agency and bring someone in, that's going to make me extremely nervous. So I'm factoring that in. He could maybe go up a spot, but he could certainly go down a spot or two if they bring in competition. Because again, I'm going to update my rankings again after free agency, and then I'm going to update them again after the draft, and then there'll be a little fluctuation here or there as we lead up to the season, and then I'll update them about once a month. So before we get into the top 4, I think we know who the top 4 are, but we're going to talk about them anyway. I want to make sure to tell you that this next segment is brought to you by our friends over at Veridian Global. They are our official apparel provider, and if you're watching live on YouTube, that is where Jerry got that sweet, sweet Dynasty WarZone cap. It reminds me of the old school Raiders cap with those colors. Now, the logo will look very familiar to you as well. They've got the dad hat, which is kind of like I'm wearing a Yeti hat, but I don't have the dad hat. But the dad hat, it's got our Air Force-inspired logo on it. We've got T-shirts, we got hoodies. And recently, that sweet son of a gun, Matty Big Chest, he created a Memphis Propzilla shirt. So I had a good run with my player props on the Player Prop Show, the People's Propcast, and him and Dr. Kyle conspired and put together. It's a gray T-shirt, little circle on the side with a little alligator type dinosaur that looks like Godzilla. It's not Godzilla. That would be a copyright infringement. But it looks kind of like that. He's got headphones on, and on the back it says Mr. Propadopoulos. So just having some fun, man. We've got my money won is twice as sweet as money earned for all you gamblers out there. That's a long sleeve champion brand tee. And you can check all of this out at Veridian Global. That's VERIDIAN, Veridian Global. Search collections, search Dynasty WarZone, as well as our homies over at the Dynasty Rewind, the Dynasty Happy Hour, the GOAT District. A lot of great Dynasty content providers house their gear at Veridian Global. So check it out, man. They run specials sometimes. If you get your total over a certain amount, they'll ship for free. And so check them out. Bookmark the page and hook yourself up with some sweet DWZ merch there, Jerry. It's merch. Not merchandise, Jerry. It's merch.
No, you got to save time. We're about efficiency here at the WarZone.
I don't know what people who do stuff, like merch and, like J Will and J Lo, what do you do with the extra time? I asked my wife this question. She's the person that when she changes the toilet paper, she sets the whole roll on top. And I'm like, what did you do with that extra time?
I'm that person.
I'm not against you. I just want to know what does that buy you? What did that extra 30 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is? Okay, but anyway, I could filibuster for hours about shit that I do that bothers my wife and shit that my wife does that bothers me. We got to get into these top 4 tight ends, man. So number 4, you mentioned him earlier, Darren the Walrus Waller. I'm a big fan. I have him at number 3. You have him at number 5. His highest rating amongst the collective is 2. I think that's bold. I think that could be a health thing with maybe George Kittle. But Jerry, what are your thoughts on the Walrus?
Probably should be higher than where I have him. But I'm an ageist. It is a disease that some people in the Dynasty community have, and I am one of those people. I mean, he's 28 years old. He's not that old. He's still got 4 or 5 years. I think the unknown that's sort of surrounding Las Vegas and their quarterback situation, if Derek Carr is gone, do I think he is going to repeat the 90 receptions or 100 and whatever he had this year, the 1,100 yards 2 years ago, the 1,200 this past year? I don't. I think that is sort of a product of a wide receiver core that is really non-existent, a running back that has really not popped in the receiving game. I think he's just the guy that is there, and so he is getting just peppered with targets. So that's my thing on Darren Waller. If you have Darren Waller, oh my goodness, you're fine. You're good, because that man gets you an unbelievable amount of points, and you're happy to have him. I don't hate Darren Waller. You talk about Darren Waller a little bit. Listen, Randy's not an ageist. This is a salt and pepper handsome man that I am sitting here talking about. So you talk about the old tight end.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Now, I will disagree slightly. I do think that his yardage and reception totals are repeatable. He had 92 years ago. He had 107 receptions this year. Both years over 1,100 yards. Over the last 3 years, he's averaged we'll call it just a shade under 12 yards per reception. The one thing that had him that I don't think repeatable is the TDs. He had 3 2 years ago. He had 9 last year.
Yeah.
I think water finds its level, and I think he'll probably wind up in that average of 6, which is fine, which is totally fine. When I'm ranking these guys, touchdowns is just a bonus, really, because they're so unpredictable and so untrackable. So I'm really fascinated by the amount of volume that he gets. The guy had 6 games over 100 yards receiving last year. You love that out of a wide receiver. Forget a tight end. You got to love the volume. He's been durable as hell. And that's going to be a knock on a couple of these other guys we're getting ready to talk about at 2 and 3. But for me, man, I can't go wrong with Darren Waller. So I get you, but like again, Dan Williamson said, these tight ends age like fine wine. He's got such a team-friendly contract at what he produces versus what he makes. I think he's golden for at least a couple of years. And, he's the kind of guy that, if I own Darren Waller on a roster, If I'm not doing great, then maybe I look to sell him off to a contender around the trade deadline in my dynasty league. But if you're contending, man, he is the antidote if your opponent has Travis Kelce, if your opponent has a couple of these other guys, because if not, you are at a severe disadvantage in your head-to-head league. So that's why I like Waller so much. Now, this next guy I know you're going to like, and I know our boy Matty Big Chest does too, because speaking of Viridian Global, if you go over there and look for Hawkamania, you're going to find a TJ Hawkinson shirt. It looks I will not, again, not to avoid any copyright issues.
Listen, we're going to need a lot more Patreons if you want us to take on. We're going to need better lawyers if we're going to go for the copyrights of these things.
Correct. That is damn correct. But the font will look very familiar on the TJ Hawkamania shirt. And I have him at 4. You have him at 3, which I'm surprised he's not number 1, considering the team that he plays for. You tell me what you like about him. He's your man in Honolulu Blue.
It's funny because I hated when we drafted him. I think taking a tight end at 8 is one of the stupidest things an organization can do. But the man's been good. And I think it's a weird spot because we downgraded at tight end, or at quarterback, excuse me. But Stafford didn't exactly pepper Hawk. I mean, he did a little bit this year, but that was the first time. His first year, it was game 1, and then it was like Hawkinson didn't even exist the rest of the season. And it started to grow a little bit this year. So we have Goff, and he's been up and down with his tight end usage. We saw, Tyler Higbee explode those last 5 games of 2019, 2020. Really, none of them were of any sort of use. But the thing about the Lions is they don't really have other pass catchers now. They're not going to franchise tag Kenny Golladay in a rebuild. No, he's like 27 years old. Not a chance. Marvin Jones is not going to want to sit through this rebuild after he was already a Bengal and then he became a Lion. You're going to tell me he's going to want to ride his career out as a Lion? No, he's not. He's going to want to go to LA or something with Stafford or wherever the hell, or Indianapolis or something. And he's going to want to go there and just be another little piece to help somebody. He wants to be a Robin somewhere. And that's going to leave Hawk and a rookie, which, we've seen rookies pop. We saw T. Higgins and we saw Justin Jefferson, but we've seen a lot of guys that take time. So he could literally be the only guy that Jared Goff has to throw to that has any sort of real talent and is going to have a great role in that offense next year. So that's why I'm going to keep him there. You think you lose Stafford, you downgrade at the quarterback position. You don't really know what Dan Campbell's going to do. That you would drop him a little bit, but I'm not going to do that because I think he is going to be the only guy. And all he has to do is be productive for half of the season. And with his age, with where people took him in their rookie drafts, with the talent we saw out of the combine and everything else that led up to his time in Iowa until he became a Lion, people are going to love him. People loved him when he struggled in year 1. Because of all those reasons. So if he's productive even a little bit with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell and the new look Lions, his value is going to be a skyrocket. And the thing about my rankings, Randy, I do base them on trade value a lot because, like you said earlier, at one point I was the guy in my league that cared more about everything else, and all I wanted to do was talk fantasy. That's still sort of the thing. And if you've ever been in a group chat with Nathan Pilmer, then you're going to have to trade a lot to keep up with the man. And I try, and I just can't. He's a cyborg that I don't understand how he can trade so much. But he does it, and he does a great job. So that's how I value things, is from the offers I send and receive, where people tend to value them as best they can. Not so much what I think I think they're going to end at the end of the season. That's an unpredictable thing that you can't do. So I like to do the trade values into it. And I think TJ Hawkinson is the 3rd most expensive tight end to trade for in the NFL.
Fair. And I may have him a spot low just based on age. And I'm not an ageist by any means, but his head coach, former tight end, I did not have time to look up Anthony Lynn's tight end usage over his career, but I believe it's been favorable. I'll have that for next week's coaching carousel show. Now that all the head coaching positions have been filled, we're going to jump into all the head coaches and the impacts on your rosters this time next week. but I may have to move him up a spot. That's a lot. You bring up a lot of good points. Less target competition. The safety blanket of the offense. Head coach was a tight end. OC, I believe, has a track record of using the tight end. It's like, it's like a little checkbox. Check, check, check. I don't see any demerits. The only demerit is maybe defensive coordinators could focus on him a little bit more, but man, I don't know. I think that TJ's season last year, where he had 100 targets and 67 catches and 700 yards and 6 touchdowns, I feel like that's his floor going forward. And some of those, 1,000-yard, 1,100-yard seasons are not too far upon us. We got 2 more guys to get into. I think some of the names are pretty obvious. The next guy is George Kittle. Everybody had these guys 1 or 2 for the most part. George Kittle's my 1, and it really is about age. That Travis Kelce and Gronk are separated by less than a year. So we can kind of talk about both at once, and we'll just take this thing home. For me, it was Kittle by age. The 3-year age gap now with Kittle, he's not the healthiest dude around. When every play you catch the ball is a fist fight, I don't care how big and how tough you are and how much you like to rumble, eventually when 2 and 3 and 4 guys are whacking you at a time because one guy's holding you up and the safety's holding you up and here comes the linebacker to blast you. It only takes a couple of those. Ask Cam Newton. And Cam Newton's not a small man. Cam Newton was like 6'6", 260 pounds. And it eventually got to him. And it will eventually get to George Kittle. So hopefully he can play as with wisdom. With age comes wisdom, I think. And I mean, maybe I'm still waiting for mine. That's why I say I think. But I'm hoping with a little bit of age comes some wisdom. And he wants to make all of that big tight end money. He just got paid. And same thing with Travis Kelce. My fear with Travis Kelce is not next year, but the year after. The year that he'll turn 33 is when the Patrick Mahomes extension kicks in. And that's when, Brett Veach and Andy Reid and this organization is going to have to make some decisions because you're no longer going to be paying Patrick Mahomes his rookie wage. Again, kind of like we talked about Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. His extension kicks in not in 2021. That's his 5th-year option. It picks up in 2022. So for me, that was a little bit of the age, a little bit of the contract uncertainty, just a couple of things. Is Travis Kelce going to kick ass and take names in 2021? You bet your ass he's going to kick ass and take names. Is he going to do it long term? I don't know. But I know that I feel like George Kittle is going to be at least another 3 to 4 years. So I'm playing Dynasty. I'm playing the long game. And for those reasons, I have Kittle 1 and Kelce 2. But Jerry, you have them in reverse order. I would love to hear your points to the contrary.
I think it's just because of the short-term productivity that Travis Kelce gets you. And like you said about George Kittle, my man gets hurt. Listen, he's the young elite tight end that is in this league that has shown that he can get a 1,300-yard season. He can get an 1,100-yard season. He was on pace for another 1,200-yard season this year, but he missed 8 games. If George Kittle plays, George Kittle's good. And I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo's good. And he still did it with Jimmy Garoppolo. And he did it with Nick Mullins. So he is quarterback proof. You would like to see an improvement. You would like to see an upgrade at quarterback. I know Jimmy G's handsome, but that dude is just not fun to watch. George Kittle, on the other hand, he's young. I get it. I just think Travis Kelce is going to be probably tight end 1 the next 2 years. And I can't take him off of my tight end 1 dynasty spot if I think he's going to be the number 1 tight end the next 2 years, which will be like 7 in a row or 6 in a row, which is he's the greatest fantasy tight end there is. I'm sorry. It's not Anthony Gonzalez. It's not Antonio Gates. It's not Rob Gronkowski. It's Travis Kelce. And he will stay at 1 because he is extremely fortunate to be in a situation with Andy Reid and with Patrick Mahomes and with all the weapons that they have where nobody can focus on anything. And you have a quarterback that is just a superhuman that can get it to anyone, anywhere at any time. It's the perfect situation. He's the perfect talent. It's the same reason when we talked about Patrick Mahomes last week. Unbelievable talent in an unbelievable situation. It's going to lead to unbelievable amounts of fantasy points. So he's going to be my 1. I think George Kittle is probably number one in trade value, though, just based on the age and his productivity. I think once you get, because he's not just 30, he's creeping up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can I push back for just a second?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I would argue that right now, and as the season creeps up, I would argue that Kittle might have a hair more value. But if you're looking to trade in season, say around week 7, 8, and Kelsey is absolutely just trash canning kids and smashing people and running amok across, I think that is when, if you're a Kelsey GM and you're looking, maybe you just have a rough season and you're looking to get a little bit younger and accumulate draft picks. Right now, the circle of Dynasty life, I posted this on a fleet on Twitter last week, but now is not the time to be moving veterans unless you're buying. It's a buyer's market right now. Everybody's looking for those years 1 and 2 and maybe 3 players. And so if you're looking to acquire these guys, the time to do it is really right now. You might be able to move one of the new hotness guys that we were talking about earlier. Maybe you can sell that narrative that Dallas Goedert's going to be the man in Philadelphia, and I'll give you Dallas Goedert in a pick, and you can get a little bit younger, and I'll take your Travis Kelce, because I can tell you will be able to flip that for profit margin in season to the right contender who wants to win, because a healthy George Kittle, a healthy Travis Kelce, and a healthy Darren Waller, they are the cheat code. They are the cheat code, and you could have a great roster. But, man, if your opponent has an equally pretty good roster and he has a Kelce or a Kittle and you're rolling out Irv Smith, you are rolling out screwed. Yeah. So that's the importance of this, Jerry. I know you didn't want to talk tight ends too much because for you it was a little yuck. But I think this was a great exercise for the listeners and the viewers, and a great companion piece to last night's tight end rookie mock. So, man, we've got some big things ahead of us. I'm ready to talk coaches next week. We'll talk about your new head man, Dan Campbell. I told Maddie I expect a Detroit kneecap biters T-shirt over on Viridian. If it's not up on Viridian Global by this time next week, Maddie may be looking for a JOB, because how in the blue hell can you be a T-shirt designer, a graphics designer, a Detroit Lions fan, have an outlet for your creativity, and you mean to sit here and tell me there's not a Detroit knee biters? What you need to do is you need to have like a picture of a couple of knees with teeth marks in them, and then a picture of, a picture of like the dude, because that's what Dan Campbell calls himself from the Big Lebowski. Yeah. A picture of the Big Lebowski chewing on kneecaps. But we're going to talk about Dan Campbell. We're going to talk about Cullen, or is it Cully, the new head coach in Houston, and, Nick Sirianni, and, my favorite, Brandon Staley. We're going to break down all 7 of these hires. We're going to talk about the impact on your dynasty rosters. And then we're gonna have some other big things. It's going to be a big February here in the zone, Jerry. Are you ready?
I am always ready. And listen, I know I crapped on the tight end position a little bit, but it is that cheat code. And that's why you have to talk about it. Because if you can get one of these guys that's Noah Fant or Kyle Pitts or Mike Gesicki, and they do grow and they end up being the Darren Waller that just comes out of nowhere and wins people leagues, or Travis Kelce or George Kittle or whatever, they can make up for a major injury that you get, or they can, just make you steamroll your league if you already have a good league, or a good team, plus you have a good tight end. And let me just say this one more thing about Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce might actually be the best asset to own in Dynasty, because you can do whatever you want with him. If you're winning, he's going to help you win. He's likely to be the guy that puts you over the top. If you're rebuilding, the value will be there. The age is irrelevant in that aspect, because once week 7 rolls around and you go to the team that's in 3rd place and they're starting Noah Fant, who they like, and you can keep Noah Fant for all I care. I'm just going to help you win. And you go trading Travis Kelce, you could just get a king's ransom for him. So he is probably the most, versatile asset to own in Dynasty.
For me, it's scarcity drives demand. It's no secret. It's in one of the oldest business practices of all time. Scarcity drives demand. Again, what are you selling? I am selling that there is something literally 3.5 of in all of Dynasty right now. We think Hawkinson can get there. We think maybe Pitts can get there. If the offense breaks right, maybe Mark Andrews can get there. But what you're selling with a Travis Kelce is you are selling scarcity. And again, it's a seller's market. But Jerry, I'm looking forward to breaking down more of this. I'm very proud of Jerry. He's working on getting his master's doctorate, some 97th degree. The kid's going to have more degrees than the thermometer before we know it.
Still going to be dumb as a box of rocks, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can buy book smarts. You can't buy street smarts, kid. And speaking of street smarts, we're going to be getting on the street next week and talking about these coaches. And then tomorrow night, join me and Dr. Kyle and Rosalie as we break down some player props, as we break down the game from a betting point of view. But until next time, that man's name is Jerry Sinclair. You can follow him at JerrySinDWZ. You can follow me on Twitter at DWZMemphis. But until next time, guys, we will remind you that here at the Dynasty WarZone, we are just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll talk to you real soon, guys. Thank you.